Hi everyone. Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. We are happy to welcome you on our today's webinar with Ilya, Mishchenko and Dmitry Pavlov.
Our speakers will share their experience of creating an effective sales team at Literra Translation Company, a language service provider headquartered in St Petersburg and working on the Russian, Western, Central European, and Chinese markets. While we are waiting for the rest of the audience, please type any sign in the chat so that I will be able to know you hear me well.
Okay, we see your signs. Thank you so much. You can also join our webinar on Facebook. Follow our official Facebook page. You can now see the link in the chat window. As all bloggers say, you are welcome to share, like, or comment our live Facebook videos. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
And we store our UTIC webinars and speeches videos on our website utic.eu in video section of our website. And you're always welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We publish our videos here too, and you will receive notifications about the latest updates. And we are happy to let you know that we have already started our preparations for UTIC 2019. The conference will take place on July 2028, a whole week of presentations and courses on translation industry trends, open-air networking in a pine forest on a riverbank, sharing knowledge and experience, and simply enjoying life. In order not to miss any news about upcoming conference and pre-sale announcements, join this event. You can see a link in the chat, and we will keep you posted.
Our today's meeting is going to be hosted by me. My name is Stanislav Bogdanov. I'm the COO of the UTIC.
And by me, Irina Vizier, PR Manager of UTIC.
Now it's time for me to turn it over to our speakers, and before we do that, I want to ask all of our attendees to send questions in the chat window. We will collect them, and I will ask them at the end of the presentation one by one. Hi Ilya, hi Dmitry, how are you? Would you like to say hello to the audience? Oh, I can see trick or treat.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's leftover from yesterday, actually.
Oh, I thought you prepared for the webinar.
Yeah, we did prepare for the webinar. Specifically for this webinar, we put it all up because of the webinar. Not because of Halloween yesterday, and not because we treat our employees with a little bit of corporate fun. But hi, we're well. I'm Ilya, this is Dmitry, and let me begin. We've got about, as far as I understand, about 55 minutes of this. A little bit of introductions first. My name is Ilya Mishchenko. I am the Managing Director and the CEO at Literra. We're based in St. Petersburg, Russia, even though we are present in different markets, including several districts in the Russian Federation, in China, and other places. I've been in the industry for over 10 years, starting as a project manager and translator and progressing to management positions at large Russian LSPs. I also serve on various boards at International Federation of Translators, at the Translators Union of Russia, and hold the position of L Exchange Coordinator at Elia. One of my sales roles at Literra involves driving our sales in Europe and China, primarily in China. This is the market that is particularly interesting to us because of so far kind of low competition, I would say, from our major competitors over here. And to my right, and probably to your, well, to my right anyway, this is Dmitry Pavlov. He is our sales director. He's been with Literra for almost 2 years. He has 5 years of experience in the translation and localization industry under his belt, and he's been instrumental in building sales teams from scratch at various also large LSPs, and also driving sales in Literra. One of the we would cite Dmitry's appearance here as one of the drivers, key drivers of Literra sales over the last year and a half. And today, can you switch to the next slide, please? Before we give thank you to UTIC for hosting us, I'd like to say a few words about the outline of our presentation, our webinar. We are going to talk about building successful teams. I mean, this is one of the major pains in the translation industry, as I see it. When we talk with industry colleagues, with industry peers about the difficulties that we experience, one of the things that comes up almost every time is, where do you find the qualified salespeople? How do you build effective and efficient teams? How do you motivate them? So this is basically what we're going to talk about today. And in a second, I'm going to hand it over to Dmitry. But this is Dmitry's first experience of hosting a webinar in English, so please be patient and don't give him a hard time afterwards. But he has prepared really well, and judging by the notes that he has taken, it's
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. We all try to optimize everything, processes, number of employees, and budgets, and at the same time, we want maximum profits. This slide shows the sales structure of our team. We believe that the basis composition should be a classical one, but complemented by experience with current market requirements. So the classic B2B sales structure is sales. We traditionally call these employees hunters, and account management, also called farmers. Nothing new. The hunter is looking for all attracting new clients. After acquiring and warming up the client, the hunter transfers them to the account management team. They are tasked with the client's growth and retention. Our sales are built on industry-specific approach, since we believe that now the time is professional sales, and the salesperson must not only have a deep understanding of our product, but also the client's industry needs. Therefore, we split the salespeople by verticals: oil and gas, life sciences, and so on. Marketing plays a significant role in attracting new clients. Marketing generates leads for sales, forms databases, and also performs special prospecting and the request of sales managers. For example, a manager is working on a construction cluster in Siberia, and marketing needs to cover all the companies in these projects, including stakeholders, names, contact details, and so on.
Okay, I'll add up here a little bit about, you see sales, you see the traditional structure of sales and account management. On the top of sales, you see tenders. We have dedicated people for preparing RFQs, bids, and our participation in auctions. It's a small team. Altogether, we have 11 people, including Dmitry, that are involved in active sales as business development managers, the hunters, and account management, the farmers. But apart from that, and apart from marketing, and marketing is outsourced, if you are at Nordic Translation Industry Forum in a couple of weeks, please make sure you listen to our marketing director, Alexey Bekmansurov, presentation on how we outsource our marketing and whether it is a viable option for language service providers. But at the top here, in the top, left corner, you see top managers. We have, well, let's say, including Dmitry, myself, Alexey, the two owners, and the operations director, we have 6 people that we qualify as top management. All of them are actively encouraged to participate in sales. Obviously, they don't get any commission, apart from Dmitry, because it's his job. But we try, sometimes they are on a customer call alone. Sometimes they help the business development managers, but all of them, in their job descriptions, they have a point and an item that they must participate in sales actively and take an active role in this. To finish up this slide, We believe that modern sales trend right now is industry professionalism. That's what Dmitry was talking about dividing and splitting our salespeople by verticals: oil and gas, life sciences, the defense sector, etc. And we encourage everybody to go deeper into every industry, not broader across the board.
Yeah.
Can we have the next slide, please? So this is the structure, and now we'll talk a little bit about how we find these people. So it came to us only recently, and we decided to do it in this way because before that we just did the selection, did the assessment, and then hired the people. But now we profile them more. This is something that came to us from two sides. One was a presentation at Translation Forum Russia when there was a presentation that talked about profiling your customers. We decided that it's not enough. We have to profile our salespeople too, because this is something that we need to, learn about them more than we learn now. We decided to do the image of an ideal salesperson, be that business development manager or account manager. We all know that everybody dreams about a perfect salesperson who will come to the company and sell and bring you large contracts, but we never find them, right? We find them, but with certain reservations. So we did a brainstorming with the help of our HR, other departments. We actually hired an outside consultant for this as well, for a bit of this. And we drew the picture of an ideal business development manager and an ideal account manager. There are two pictures that we have here. So there are several things that are different and several things that are common. Obviously, they all have to have experience in B2B sales, because the person who had worked in B2C sales, they think differently and they expect different things from the clients rather than what we see in our industry. But we split them. We see whether they're result-oriented or process-oriented. Hunters are usually result-oriented. Farmers are usually process-oriented. But we're rethinking this item right now because we're thinking that farmers, the ones that we have, should take an active role in upselling. And then we actually define the percentage-based ratio. I can't remember the exact percentage now, but this is something that you can measure during the assessment at a later stage. And then we see what they're actually aimed at, whether they're aimed at hunting, digging in the ground, actually looking for new leads, bringing customers in, or they're actually more inclined to care about people, whether they're like a caring mother that would nurture the client and thereby drive sales in that account as well. And then we see the common features that we want in every single person. One is multitasking. Our industry is moving at a dynamic pace. It's really fast. You have to make decisions on the fly. You have to handle several projects at once. So you can concentrate on one task, but we need to know, we need to make sure that you're also able to multitask as well. I mean, like in the sense that you'd have 3 projects on your table and you need to address all of them, and you need to be able to do that in a diligent manner, but at the same time not losing focus in any one of them. Then we thought that, and we actually believe this is something that we try to instill in every successful candidate, that sales should be a profession. I mean, salesperson is probably the easiest job that you can get on the market, regardless of the industry, right? People go to sales out of desperation, maybe sometimes, right? Because they cannot land a job of their dream. They cannot land a job based on their qualification. That's why they go and start selling cars, for example, or start selling, I don't know, pipes or whatever. It is something that people don't do because they feel that it is their vocation. It is something that they are trained for, and is something that they can be a professional in. And we want to see people addressing sales as their lifelong profession, because they see this is an area where they can grow professionally, develop, and achieve high results. Obviously, they need to be client-oriented and think about the level of service that they provide, because they are the first point of contact with the customer, and the service should be paramount. It's not about the project managers, it's not about the translators, it's not about the delivery guys that deliver the stamped, notarized translations. Primarily, it's about the salespeople. BDMs or account managers, the level of service that they provide will instill in the brains of the customer, and they'll think about, the level of the service that the company provides. They need to be willing to train, and they have to be proactive. The best case scenario is when someone comes to Dmitry or to me and says, hey, I want to undergo this training in conflict resolution or objections handling or whatever. I mean, this is something that we encourage, and it's something that we very much like when people do that. And then we need to make sure that the person that we are profiling will be loyal to the company for, well, in the long run, let's say. Because sometimes you look at the resume, you see that there's changing jobs every 6 or 7 months. They might be very charismatic, they might be very skillful, but they don't see the company as a place where they can stick around for a long time, right? So you need to be able to see that when you're profiling them. But this is something that is done by our HR. And Dmitry will now, can you please switch to the next slide? We'll now talk about where we look for them and what are the ways of bringing potential candidates in.
Okay, we can recruit both experienced salespeople and young newcomers without experience. Now, we have both types in our team, but there are two sides to this story. As a rule, an experienced salesperson needs to show quick results and bring a lot of money, and the sales cycle in business is quite long. An experienced salesman will use every opportunity to project his past experience onto tasks and verticals, which is not always good. At the same time, an experienced salesperson will quickly achieve the result we want. A salesperson without experience is cheaper and easier to hire, but they need to be trained more. They understand the specific details of our product better. Their minds is pure, and they'll greedily try to remember all the details. And as a result, they will bring the first big project only in 6 or 8 months. If we need a salesperson to work on Russian market, then we are looking them the usual way, trying such resources as Headhunter, Superjob, and so on. So far, LinkedIn worked best in looking for experienced salespeople for international markets. We are also looking for young, inexperienced professional on social networks. By the way, Instagram works really well.
Yep, I can attest to that.
Experienced salespeople, sharks of the international translation super pooper business, can be found on specialist resources such as Slater, Multilingual, and so on. And you definitely need to get recommendations from your colleagues in the industry if you hire an experienced employee. If hard times have come and no one wants to work with you, then you might want to use internal resources and suggest a competition like bring your friend to work. Employees give resumes of their friends, old colleagues, and others. But as you understand, this is the last resort solution, and it carries many business risks.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, getting your other staff members to actually bring in relatives or friends simply because they know that they want a job is not the best solution, but in the past we've resorted to such measures, and sometimes it proved well, the company started that way. A lot of people that knew each other from previous job, they got together and founded the company. I wasn't there, by the way. So now when we've profiled our candidates, now that we've looked at various resources, Headhunter, Superjob, Rabota.ru, etc., looked through social networks, yes, Instagram works really well, especially with the younger audience. We start looking at the incoming CVs. Can we have the next slide, please? What we do, we draft, or Dmitry usually drafts a request to HR, and they start getting the vacancies out. They post it on social networks. We disseminate it through industry-specific groups on Facebook, whatever. And we work with universities a lot if we're looking for an experienced salespeople. And as Dmitry was saying, that we can hire both types. We would go to universities and see if they are trained to be translators and interpreters, but don't want to translate, but they can still work in the industry. And this is something that is, we can help them that way. So we have the criteria of an ideal BDM or an ideal account manager. We find the CVs, we sift through the CVs and find 70 to 90% criteria match. Maybe lower, but it all depends on the goal. If you want to have a young person that is inexperienced and we want to invest in their training, we'll go for a lower match. If we want to have an experienced person, obviously we want to see a higher match. In this case, this person will cost us more, but we know what we're doing because we agree to these terms. So then everything is done by HR. We are not involved in this, not in the interview stage, none of us. Not me, not Dmitry, not our colleagues. HR conducts, does the first contact over the phone. They ask clarifying questions. They check them for how they speak. This is really important. We check their speech. We check the language twice, actually. Once when they are talking with the HR first, how they construct their sentences, whether they make, whether it's clear, whether it's freely flowing, whether they are using whatever the language they're using, basically. Because this is something that you will get when you get them out to meet with the customers. You never know how they talk with your customers unless you go with them, and you cannot go with them on client calls all the time, right? So you have to make sure that they are the face of the company, and as the face of the company, they're adequately represented. And then again, we are in the language business. So if we are selling to, let's say, a factory that makes engines, then maybe it's fine because they'll be speaking with an engineer that doesn't have it for the final language. But in a lot of cases, we're selling to professional buyers, procurers of translation services that by trade are translators, and they would appreciate the nice language, correct language for that matter. Then if the person satisfies the HR, they conduct a face-to-face interview, and HR is the only person who will be with these candidates at the initial interview stage and at the assessment that we'll talk about later. And then based on the interview, the HR will make the decision to invite or not to invite the candidate to an assessment. Depending on the number of people we want at the assessment, it will be an immediate decision or a postponed decision, postponed invitation, but it will all be done by HR. At the same time, one of the things that we started doing actually about 2 years ago is that we never hire a person now. We never hire a person without English, even though not all of them work with non-Russian speaking customers, but still we checked it at this stage. We have the corporate training department and people there, or sometimes they ask me to speak with the candidate for 1 or 2 minutes to assess the level of English, spoken English basically. We do that as per SEFR grades. And then we move to assessment. We've selected ideally 10 candidates. This is an ideal setup because this gives us more room to select and gives us more room to actually compare people against different psychological types. We get the consent. Not all people, it actually is harder to speak with people that are over 30, that are seasoned professionals, as they think, and that have a good track record in sales. It's actually harder because they have an opinion about themselves. They think that it might be undermining if we invite them to an assessment, and they will be assessed against another 9 people. We actually had an incident, and it was a mistake, admitted mistake by our HR, that that a guy that was assessed at the assessment, he actually got completely lost in the process. And at the end, when we were getting feedback from everybody and people were saying generally nice things about, you know, it was an experience for them. They hadn't done it for a long time, etc., etc., etc. And he stood up and said that, you know, I'm way too good for this. He actually lost. He was like the last but one, or the last one by all the what do you call it? All the marks, all the points. But he stood up, made a scene, and rushed out before we even had a chance to announce the results. So this is something that is harder with more experienced people, but it really works well with younger ones because they have nothing to lose. I mean, and they're ambitious. They want to show that they're better than others, which is always good. And it is always good for the type of salesperson we're looking for. If they want to be the best one, if they have that charisma, this is always good for it. So we get the conference room, not this one. This one is branded too, as you can see. You can actually, if you've shown the video, you can show it now. If you haven't shown it, you can show it now. Maybe later. Okay. We get the conference room, we brand it, and we try to create what we call an exciting or friendly working atmosphere. We welcome them at the door, we get them registered, everybody's smiling. I'm not generally the nicest person to talk to or the nicest person to be around with, but they try to, they try to make me more friendly, let's say. So we have a host that leads the whole assessment from the beginning to the end. If we're not showing the video, can we please have the slide back? So we have the host and we have observers. This is the person from HR, the one that did the preliminary interviews. We have all the top management, usually 4 people, Dmitry, myself, one of the owners who's responsible for automation, the development director, and we have sometimes we have the vendor manager because she also fulfills the functions of an HR sometimes. And we usually get one person. We used to get one person from the sales department that was really good at actually at role play games. He was very good at hosting them. These observers, they get different tasks throughout these 3 to 4 hour, let's say, activity with short breaks. We have an agenda. Everybody has an agenda that is rotating in the sense that I would get different role play games and different candidates will get different observers, so that everyone will have had a look at every candidate, and every candidate will have had a chance to see every observer and talk and interact with them, because we get a consensus decision at the end. We try to achieve a consensus decision at the end, and it's sometimes very good to look at certain people at a different perspective, because the one that won the last assessment, actually, when he played me in a role play game, he lost like bitterly. He absolutely. Well, I was probably not in a very good mood that day, but still, the fact that he also talked to other observers carried its weight, and we eventually hired him, and he got us one of the largest Oriental contracts we've ever had. Later, obviously. So we asked them to do self-presentations, and then they go through different games, and we assess them at different competences. And if you switch to the next slide, you will see the individual report that we give them. I'm sorry that it is in Russian, but it's something that we copied and pasted, and it's still not very visible. But in the table, you can see the competences on the left. They are communicative skills, analytical thinking, level of responsibility, high tolerance for stress, because this is something that we work in. We work in a very stressful environment, and it's a high-paced, stressful business. And then the result-oriented performance, whether they're result-oriented, and in case this is the report for the BDM, and if we're talking about account managers, then we have the process-oriented performance, whether they're oriented at diligent, painstaking, very routine process with certain projects. Each criteria has the maximum mark of 2. We accumulate the marks from different games, different activities. Sometimes it's not a game, sometimes they have to draw a plan of the day or something. This is something that, and then accumulate the marks, and we get the overall score that is presented in an individual report. The individual report is later sent to the successful candidate, all the candidates.
And all the candidates.
All the candidates. And we have it as a template. So basically, if you score very little on the level of responsibility, the individual report will state that you need to address this as an issue, you need to find ways to be more responsible, and so on. This is something that we specifically got our top management to be trained in way back. Several people were trained at actually hosting the games and activities, and 2 people were trained at producing these reports, and we send them to every single participant, like Dmitry said. Yeah. Then we get the overall score, and the person that is on the top is what we call the winner. We actually have a very well, I don't know if it's a cute tradition because you shouldn't gamble, but the sales department behind that wall, they bet. They don't know the candidates, but they know they have the list. They know the list of the names. They bet on who's going to win. They don't bet with money. Don't think anything. No.
With money sometimes.
Sometimes. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. Okay.
They are salespersons.
Sales.
Only
sales.
money. Only money. Yeah.
They only bet on money. Jesus Christ. Okay. Can we have the next slide, please? And then the winner gets to the final interview, and Dmitry will tell you a little bit about it.
So, believe it or not, we had already made our choice in 90% of cases at the first contacts with the applicant. So it is very important not to conduct a full interview before the assessment. So when all the results are available and there is a final candidate, we need to finally make sure and agree on them.
Yep.
First of all, we have the golden rule. We take only one, the best one. No matter how great the temptation was to take 2 persons and who had taken the second place. Never do that. Prepare for the interview by examining the winner's individual report. Prepare a work plan for 3 months and discuss it in the interview. Tell in detail how their work day will be formed, what the difficulties in the work are, and what to do to achieve success. In addition to professional questions that interested you, ask general, life questions. What goals they have, when the candidate want to achieve them, in what way and for what purpose. Try to understand how the candidate thinks and put yourself in their shoes.
And of course, you need to sign the job offer right at the end of the meeting. This is something that the interview is something that we do to make sure that we've made the right choice, just to make sure, not to, there were cases when we talked to the person after the assessment, we said no once or twice, but in general, is this just, a formality to make sure that we've selected the right person. And we suggest that you make it a memorable finale. For example, at the very end, we leave the candidate for like 3 to 5 minutes to think it over and sign it, and then we make a dramatic entrance. The whole team makes a dramatic entrance to congratulate the guy.
I take on significant role during the first 3 months of the employees' work at Literra. Their future results depends on it. Adaptation of a salesperson is not just giving them specific tasks as a manager. Making the salesperson welcome is the goal of the whole company. In everyday work, the new employee will face various problems, including issues of personal interaction with staff from other departments. That is why we need to set up the most effective communication between the new employee and the company staff. On the first day, there is a welcome tour of the company. It takes about 30 minutes. HR introduce them in each department, tell them what they will do and why they came to us. You also need to show all the office space, bathrooms, dining rooms, and so on. It is important to organize the employees' workplace and provide them with everything they need on the first day. The most important point is the discussion of a specially prepared document. It is called Objectives for the Trial Period. Studying it will the employee discuss all the details and set some of the first tasks on SMART goals. You have to customize your working relationship now, but not later. By the way, a great solution to fix all the details of the meetings is taking notes of everything you agree on. I do just that always. It is a very good practice to write down everything from small issues to global tasks. I meet with my staff on a weekly basis for 1-2 hours to discuss their work and results.
Yep. And then we go after the onboarding plan for 2 weeks is actually part of Literra Knowledge, the project, let's say the project that we have been carrying on for a long time now. It's the next slide, thank you. Literra Knowledge is the literal translation of Literra Znania. The Russian-speaking audience will pick up on the complex word, let's say. It's multifaceted. It has several modules. One is the planning meetings with other staff members. They go to production, they go to operations, they learn about the technology, they learn about the automation. We have our own bespoke TMS and CRM. They go to the financial department, they learn how the invoices are issued and sent out, what we do with the accounts receivables. They talk with marketing, they see how marketing can help them with their day-to-day work, and so on. Then they go to sales, and the rest of the training is actually conducted within the sales. Obviously, we try to spend more time on production and the product itself because it's sometimes more complex than the sales techniques that they need to use. But it's a tricky question. A good salesperson might not be very knowledgeable in the product that they're selling, but they might be just good salespeople. And it's always a dilemma whether they need to. Well, obviously they learn the basic stuff about the cat repetition grid, about the translation memory, how we can leverage the past translated content, and how that can help the client. But this is something that they usually learn but never try. We've always had the idea of switching places or switching project managers because project managers in our case, rarely interact with customers directly, and switching them with the salespeople, but never got around to doing that because we think that people are professionals in what they're doing, and they should professionally be doing what they have to do. So each meeting should be at minimum 60 minutes. Then we have a more general training that Dmitry and I give to them. We talk about the market, the competitive setting. I mean, they need to know who they're competing against. They need to know the weaknesses. We teach them never to talk ill of other translation companies, because some translation companies do that, but they need to know who is behind them. I mean, you come to the customer, you see someone from the industry, you need to know who they are and what they can offer and how they do this. We talk about the industry trends, the products available on the market, because our product offering is not exhaustive. We are not offering everything there is to offer, but sometimes they might pick up on a client that will prompt us to, build that process and produce something else. And we talk about the available technology and operation techniques. Then we have the weekly corporate training, which is not always weekly, obviously, because it all depends on the time. I'm away a lot, and Dmitry is always on the business, traveling on business. This is Literra Znania, Literra Knowledge proper. We cover various topics, anything from sales techniques to which industry events to attend and why. We talk about
Real cases.
Case studies, yep. And sometimes we invite outside trainers for this, like to talk a bit about project management, to talk about, I don't know, teach them about Agile and Scrum, even though they might not need it in their everyday work, but they need to know that these techniques exist, and so on. So for the majority of the training, we have the video, we have them taped. And there are videos. There is a repository of videos that if I'm away, for instance, and the person is scheduled to talk with me, instead we'll show them the video and we'll count this as, you know, lesson learned. But sometimes it is a solution because you might not always have the time. And we also, the repository also has different presentations from events that we go to that are available. Not all of them are, obviously, not all staff members read them, but you know, they try. And then we have a corporate library. Mostly it's about sales. We have the library of multilingual, but the majority of the books that we have are on sales and account management and negotiation techniques. And we have some like industry related books like Found in Translation or the General Theory of the Translation Company, that our company is actually, with the help of the students of Polytechnical University, are translating into Russian. But in general, it's a corporate library. It's a proper library. When they take out the book, they have to register it with the office manager, and you know,
it is about 100 books.
Yeah, about 100 books. So this is what, in general, cumulatively we call Literra Knowledge. And then, apart from the training, we get the tasks for the trial period, the objectives that we set for them during the trial period. They can be found on the next slide. It's very, I know it's very fine print, so you can look at it a bit later at more detail, but I'll just give you a brief overview. On the right, you have the deadlines, the dates by which a candidate, not a candidate, a new staff member has to do this. On the left, you have the first year objectives. Like there is one objective that is always based on the like fixed and tangible result. Like they need to achieve a 60% of quarterly sales target at least. In our case, obviously the sales target, they grow over the time. Then there is the training. They have to undergo certain training. They have to learn about the product portfolio. They have to study and sign the incentive program. They have to learn about the sales channels. In terms of sales, they need to know about spin sales, how to handle objectives, what is the sales funnel, how it works in our CRM. And then, for instance, what this particular candidate had to do a commercial offer by the 20th of October this year. Produce a commercial offer that was made on his own, right?
Yeah.
Completely on his own, without having learned all these things. He had to do a commercial offer on his own. And like Dmitry said, some of the objectives and tasks, they have to be
about sales
smart. No, they have to be smart tasks, measured with the results, time-oriented, time-bound, and so on. Some of them maybe just learn about this without any specific result. We don't expect you to undergo a test or something. But in some of them, like the 60% sales target, the commercial offer, or the first 5 phone calls to random companies in your vertical, they have to be smart. So part of the onboarding is the sales funnel, because we're talking about salespeople, and in this case we are more talking about the business development managers than account managers, because these are the people that we hire more. We tend to fire them more actually than account managers. The account managers stay longer. And Dmitry will talk about a quick way to onboard a new salesperson. Can we have the next slide, please?
It is also about a classic way to sell. An excellent solution to quickly onboard a new salesperson is still the sales funnel. This will be a great help to your team, but only with the right approach and fine-tuned CRM system. It is important that marketing prepare databases for work in advance. It is very important that the setup of the sales funnel matches the strategic goals of your company. They may be different in different translation companies. I'm talking about ours in Literra. As you see, we prefer strong and aggressive outbound sales. In this picture, you see the funnel for a new customer. Here are the status of the client and the stage of sales. In my opinion, this is what we need now, but I will repeat that in each company, the funnel needs to be set up separately.
So if you cannot read it properly, somehow the introduction didn't get translated in a table on the left. I'm sorry about this, even though I do remember translating it. But you go from introduction to need to test to objections and then to cooperation. The classical path of a prospect to an actual client. And then you get, in the introduction, you get identifying, locating 50 decision makers, making 20 first calls, writing 15 first letters, and holding first 15 meetings. Then when you've already done that, we're at the customer, you verify the need, you identify the need. So you conduct 20 phone conversations to learn about it in more depth. You conduct 8 meetings, and then maybe draft 2 commercial offers. Then there is a test translation. If there is an excellent presentation that we did why we don't like test translations. I know that Renato loves them, but we hate them, and for several particular reasons. We can give you a whole presentation about this, but this is something that we naturally do, and in most cases do well. But this is also a stage of the funnel, and this is embedded into our CRM. Then you have the objections. And the objections can be about turnaround times, cost, quality, other reasons, and maybe the satisfaction with the other vendor. And then when you have passed all these, when you've handled all the objections well, then you get the cooperation, you get the projects, or you get the contract signed. This is Dmitriy's favorite slide. I love it too when it comes to Payday, because every top manager at Literra talks about changing the incentive program when the payout is too large, in our opinion. We are convinced that salespeople are entitled to earn way too much, like a lot of money, huge amounts of money, more than anyone else. And this is justified by the fact that the salesperson has no stable fixed income. They're wolves in the world of sales, let's say. Today they can spend a lot of money on a sleek car, but tomorrow they have to live on very little and maybe eat instant noodles or something, I don't know. The right motivation tool is a simple and clear commission calculation system that we have. The one at Literra, the one that we have inbuilt in our CRM, changes in real time and should help, we think, should help the managers see the room for improvement. Like, we get only 60%, I've got 80% of days already passed, and in the last 20 I need to do something to get more large contracts in our system. The commission for business development managers is paid on the projects that we start working on, not the projects that are delivered. If you want, I can explain it into more detail at the Q&A. We believe that in the modern world, everything is simplified. This also applies to motivation and incentive schemes. You have to show employees what you're willing to pay for, what is good and what is bad. What would you like? A lot of sales at an average market price, or just a few huge but profitable contracts? You decide that, and then the salespeople will adapt and execute.
Also, you can talk for a long time about non-material motivation, the best employee price, simple price, department rating, and so on. But let's face it, the best motivation is money.
Yep.
And this does not negate the fact that you simply must recognize the victories and failures of our team. You need to pay attention to any result. For my own experience, there is nothing worse when you bring the best result and your boss considers just a norm. It is normal for you, okay?
Yep. Always, people get used to good things way too easily.
In order to earn a lot, a salesperson still need to be pointed in the right direction. I'm talking about additional tasks that affect the amount of their bonus. I set these tasks monthly in our CRM. The system sees the progress on these tasks and salesperson adjusts their actions to get their money and achieve the company's sales targets. In fact, you can set any tasks that you want to assign to a salesperson in addition to sales, of course, if you need it. Calls, meetings, conversation, conversion, all this is about sales classics. Once I set a task for a business development manager to post 5 photos on Facebook, do 10 live broadcasts on Instagram, all this at big expo in Moscow. It seems strange, but that was what I need from him at the time.
Yes, that was a very unusual KPI, but he was in the initial stage of onboarding, so we thought it was well, it was good for marketing purposes because he took over the company Instagram and the company Facebook page, and just did a little bit of social media marketing.
So it must be interesting. Interesting KPIs is the best KPIs, I think. Onboarding, how to motivate salespeople. Okay, the first transparent commission calculation in real time. It is important for a salesperson to see the amount of their salary in real time. What did I do to, and how did I affect my bonus? Check. Okay, the next is weekly meetings with your manager. Detailed meetings with notes. Discuss everything you can. To the small details or large details, it is important to discuss the weekly results and adjust the salesperson's actions. Monthly KPIs, what I was talking about. Their use is optional, but desire. Clear goals. All goals you set should be SMART goals. About information. Give timely and useful information to your people. Let them be the first to know the news of the company. Sooner or later, they will still learn everything, but not from you.
Which is not always good. And as a manager, you have to be the source of that. You have to regulate this. You have to be the source of the news that's spread in the company. If it's rumors, you have to stop them at the very beginning. But this is something like official news. You have to be the one to tell them. It doesn't have to come. It shouldn't come to them from a general meeting with production or like from myself. But if in case of Dmitry, it has to be him.
It is important for small or large companies as well. Recognition. Recognize your good results and tell them whole team how important it is and why. Delegating training and growth. Trust your people and give them an opportunity to grow and develop. This includes paid and external training. Incentive programs. This is an additional opportunity to earn. Develop a program in which you can regulate the efforts of your sales team in the right direction. Add a new product, sales more DTP, and so on. And team, organize a healthy environment in the team. Salespeople experience a lot of stress on the battlefield, so let them feel comfortable at home.
Which is not always the case because I'm not the easiest person to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. These were the key 9 points that Dmitry actually defines in motivating his salespeople. And like we said, money is the right motivator, is the main motivator, but money is not enough. It is enough, but it is not enough at the same time. It has to be shown to them in real time. At a certain stage, at a certain point, our CRM was down, or that functionality in the CRM was down, and we couldn't, and they couldn't see the earnings, they couldn't see their commission, and for several days, the whole morale in the whole room was down. I mean, they couldn't see it, they couldn't track it, and even though they obviously could calculate it, like make out a report, get a report, draft a report from the system, and then calculate the commission, but it wasn't the same. So this is important. It has to be right in front of them. They have to see it. They have to be able to regulate the actions based on it. We are used to smartphones. We're used to information getting right to us in no time. This is what you have to do with fine-tuning your CRM in terms of salary calculation and everything. But the secret of success is on the next slide, like the ultimate secret of success. And it is that it's not a team effort. We think and we thought that, you know, sales is it's an individual issue. You know, people sell individually, but you as a team have to, you know, move forward to be able to achieve the sales targets for the whole company. But it's not a team effort. It's an individual effort. Everybody wants something unique. There is no collective need for approval. There's no collective need for incentive. Some people want approval and like recognition in front of everybody. Some people just need a large paycheck at the end of the. So invest in people, invest in them differently, train some of them, praise the others, try to find the unique approach to every single one of them. I think that would be the key to fine-tune and make them more efficient than they were before. And on this wonderful note, we will conclude the general part of the presentation. Thank you for your attention, and we can take any questions now. I'm sorry we overshot by 2 minutes, but before we do, can I just say, under our logo, Literra, you'll see a small round shaped logo which has the words translation strategies under them. This is something that we did way before, like 8 years ago. We had a small translation conference called that, but now we are using this brand for our podcast that will start in November. It will be in Russian and in English, and mostly in Russian though. And it will be about the industry, about the sales, about people, about technology. Mostly we want to focus on the the people and the sales rather than the technology, but still it should be very interesting. So check it out soon, and it will be available on our website and on Translation Strategies website. So now we can take all the questions.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Thanks a lot. It was a well-structured and informative speech. I hope we all know how to find and where to find and how to teach an ideal candidate, and what an effective sales team looks like. The first question from me, I might have missed it because I had some, organizers work here, but just to be, in terms of you have a sales team based in Russia for Chinese market as well, or you have separate teams abroad?
For Chinese markets, we have myself. I started learning Chinese not very long ago, so
the best one. Yeah.
But no, we have a sales rep in China who is Chinese. It took us a long time to actually qualify this person, and it was not done through assessment. And this is a friend and a colleague of mine that we cooperate in other projects as well, not only translation, but also education and training. And he helps us get the leads in. And then we split, we qualify different types of customers there, so he goes after the large end clients there.
Okay, taking into account that you said that you are not the simplest person to deal with, I think that sales process for Chinese market is tricky, yeah, because you're the only sales.
You have to adapt and learn, and then you never learn enough, and then the next time you come there, there's a different thing that you should have taken into account, but we learn.
Yeah, we wish you luck on this. In terms of taking into account that this is kind of a DAO or a way, yeah, with no end.
Yes, it is.
And one more question for me, please, about using social media to sell to clients from abroad. And I'm specifically interested in LinkedIn. Can you please share some, insights or maybe experience? Do you use this social network for selling?
It is for finding LPRs.
It is for finding decision makers, the stakeholders. It is usually very good at getting to people, because you might not have their email, but you can easily get to them through LinkedIn. in a lot of times people respond. The response might be different, you know, like not very friendly, but or just the usual. We already have vendors. We don't need a new one, or you know. But this is something that we use a lot because. But basically, in order to get in touch with the decision makers or the main stakeholders, we don't promote ourselves as much as we should. But then again, in terms of social media marketing and promotion, like when you do blog posts, write articles, and so on, I have two opposite opinions of our marketing director and another guy who's also whose opinion I also trust. And this is the only issue that they disagree on. The one says that social media marketing works, and the other one says no. It's like it never works. I mean, it gives a general impression that the company is large and successful, and that, for instance, I personally travel a lot, which has nothing to do with our quality, right? But you know, direct sales and face-to-face meetings, they prove to be more efficient. And also networking, it gives you more qualified leads than if you're working on the B2C market, then yes, then we've been, like, you know, using bots in Telegram, for instance, to get leads, get qualified leads. Yes, that's the thing, that's the place, that's the space where you can do it.
But if we're talking about social media services, we talking about non-target clients, because professional and target clients, it is not about social media. Yeah?
Yes, they don't look for you there.
It is about direct sales.
They can check you out. They can check out what kind of dog you have, or what, you know,
if you are a real person or not.
Yeah, but they wouldn't actually read the article that your company went to this exhibition or this trade fair and, you know, and made a presentation. They are in different places, but sometimes you use it to communicate with people directly.
Thank you. Ira, you have the mic.
Yes, I have some questions from our YouTube audience. According to your experience, how much it takes in your company to receive the first payment from the client since the moment it was qualified as lead?
Depends on the industry. Let's say when you talk about other LSPs that we work with, it's the usual cycle of 30 to 60, maybe 90 days, depending on their size and the level of, I don't know, decency. But like on the, you know, if you compare the Russian, like the largest account we have in China, the first, from the moment we qualified them as a lead to the moment when we got the first payment, like from the moment as we qualified them till the moment we got the first project, we had like 4 months. Then we had about 6 months after that we got the payment, which is not always good for the business, right? If you get a small client that is small, I mean in size of business that he can give you, if it's a small client and we qualify them as a warm client, as a like very, very prospective lead, whatever the terminology is, and then, you know, it takes up to 6 months to actually get the first contract, usually, as is the 6 months before we get any good result from a new salesperson, right? And then you know, the terms of payment are different from 5 days to, let's say, 6 months.
Okay,
the fastest we got was the 5 days. The longest we had 6 months. And the further east you move, then the longer are the payment terms.
Okay.
In Russia too, yeah.
Yes, and we have another question. Everybody talks about that millennials issue. That it's hard to find good competitive salespeople now. So do you experience the same?
We have 2 millennials. 3.
Out of how many employees?
Yeah, say it's 3. You?
No, I'm not a millennial. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Dmitry is on that borderline between the millennials and the ones before that. I'm not a millennial, but we have several. One of them is a really good account manager. He was a bad salesperson, to be honest, but then we actually fine-tuned him to become an account, and he is splendid at what he does. The other two, they have their own issues in terms of focus. Maybe they understand our objectives a bit differently, because like maybe Dmitry too, I expect that people, when I tell them something, they understand it in the way I want them to understand it, right? If you know what I mean. In terms of, I don't know, you follow this lead, you follow up on this lead, you know, you make them, I imagine that they should make, I don't know, like 10 calls, maybe try and go and meet them. I'm more nervous about any potential lead than the millennials. They're more calm, in my opinion.
I think that recognition is the most important part for millennials. It's very important for that guys.
To recognize and to show them that they appreciate their result is appreciated.
And another question is, you mentioned you use Literra and multilingual to find salespeople or for your sales opportunities?
Well, we try to see who's going where, because surprisingly enough, Literra and multilingual, they publish people movements. Like you would imagine that they would publish the change of a CEO or somebody else, but they actually publish that this company hired a business development manager. In my opinion, this might not be such a newsworthy item, but to us, it's important in the sense that we see who is going where, who sells life sciences. We talked with several people in the industry that were in Western Europe and the United States, simply because I tracked them on one of these resources.
Thank you so much, colleagues. And well, I think that we are really running out of time right now.
I'm sorry.
No, never mind. It was a great speech. Thank you so much, and thank you very much for answering the questions. Dear guests, feel free to send the rest of the questions to our email, and we will send them to speakers and ask them to answer. I don't think I don't mind to answer.
Yep.
So let's show the slides.
Yes,
yeah?
And we have another organization slides. We say goodbye for now and see you on UTIC 2019, sorry.
Yeah, 19.
Yes, 19. So
thank you so much.
So we have another webinar. It will take place on November 15th at 4 p.m. Our guest, Tatiana Struk, will talk about adaptivity in translation training and will provide a roadmap for university lecturers in translation who seek to prepare their students for the challenges of the real-life industry.
The registration is already open on our website. Feel free to join.
Yes, and you can join our social media. We always list them in our video descriptions.
We would like to thank our events, UTIC Camp 2019 and UTIC webinar sponsors and partners. And our next live event will be held on July 2028 in 2019. We are glad to meet our standing partners and our sponsors team, and we are happy to announce, and we have one more gold sponsor, company Logrus IT, who joined us well, actually yesterday. So it's kind of hot news, and thanks a lot to our sponsors and partners.
Yes, and we kindly ask you to give us some feedback. Here is a feedback form to let us know your opinion about this webinar. We don't say goodbye, as we will already meet you soon.
See you. Thanks.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.